Prophet Ibrahim, planting the tree of Tawheed, a Maqasidic insight by Dr. Karim Abuzaid. Join us on Saturdays and Sundays, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Laila Nasheeba, streaming on all major platforms. Channel SunnahFollowers.
Alhamdulillah, wassalat, wassalamallah, wa rasulallah. I'd like to welcome everybody to our Maqasidic Tafsir class. And this is the class where we are learning the meaning of the chapter of the Quran entitled the chapter of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And this is one of the most moving chapters of the Quran. Why? Because it's a chapter that calls to Tawheed. It's the chapter where Allah uses the beautiful metaphor or the beautiful parable of the two trees, the tree of Tawheed and the tree of Shirk. And Allah leaves us all asking the question, which tree are you planting within your heart? Are you planting the tree of Shirk, or are you planting the tree of Tawheed within your heart? And only you and I can answer that question, because only you and I know what kind of tree we are nurturing within our heart. And we've covered the verses of this surah up until verses 31. And now we've taken it past 31 to 41. And we've discussed yesterday how from 31 to 41, the verses of this amazing chapter of the Quran leave the parable of the trees and turn to the story of the man behind the parables, and that man being Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. This chapter of the Quran, Allah magnifies to us how every one of us should take him, this man, Abraham, as a role model for ourselves, because he became the father of many prophets, alayhi salam, including our prophet, Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And yesterday we recanted, and I repeat again, we recanted what the beginning of this chapter entailed. And tonight we're going to talk about the trunk, because yesterday we recanted the soil and how important it is for us to lay the foundation of our tree by cultivating the soil to make sure that the soil has been purified of any substances that can bring the downfall of our tree. Well, tonight we're going to focus in on the trunk. So for those of you who are listening to me on this program that I'm pointing to, I strongly encourage you, and you guys can see me, and I know I've made it so you cannot turn your cameras on for me to see you. And I've also made it so that you can't talk either, because I have some bad blood on there. Bad blood. Y'all know what I'm talking about on there. So But I highly recommend for what you people on this other platform should do is open up a tab on your cell phone to YouTube and then go to my channel SunnahFollowers, and click on the live stream. So that way you're not looking at my face. Instead, you'll see my face and also what I'm getting ready to post up now, which is the PowerPoint. So we can continue our journey of the man behind the two trees, the man behind the tree of Tawheed, named Abraham, alayhi salam. So everyone should be able to see the PowerPoint. Yes, I'm using my Barbara Wawa voice. Exactly. And tonight we're going to recant the trunk. And as we spoke about over the summer, over the past 3 months of teaching this book, the trunk represents the behavior of the human being. If the soil of the tree has been nourished properly with knowledge, it's been nourished with the correct knowledge and understanding of Islam, not psychology, not secular knowledge, knowledge of Allah, knowledge of his names, his attributes, knowledge of how to worship him correctly, knowledge of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the things the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the things the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. If the soil has been nourished with the proper knowledge and understanding of this deen, then the trunk, which represents the human behavior, will emulate that knowledge through its behavior, the actions. And that's what we're going to focus in on today. This is going to catch us up to date for those of you who were not here during the summer months. For those of us who were busy seeking the life of this world. Many of us were out sowing our oats, as they say, instead of planting the seed of Tawheed within our hearts. Many of us were out sowing our oats in the dunya, as they say. Well, I'm getting ready to catch you up to date with the trunk. So pay attention and let's get started. Thank you, sisters. Make sure you don't mess up your evening gowns. I know laundry is quite expensive today. Okay. When a heart reflects with sincerity and a mind reasons with humility, it begins to ascend through the levels of certainty. And a Quranic ladder that strengthens belief and transforms the soul then will emerge. And that takes on knowledge, which is based on certainty of faith. And this becomes the stage of intellectual conviction. And the stage of intellectual conviction is built on observation. It's built on rational proofs. And it's transmitted through knowledge. We call it in Arabic, ilm al-yaqeen. Also, when our heart reflects with sincerity and your mind reasons with humility, vision emerges. visions that's based on certainty of faith. And this is known as the stage of visual affirmation. We spoke about this in detail over the past 3 months too. And this emerges when the signs of Allah are witnessed in one's life, and belief moves from the mind to the eyes. It's called Ayn el-Yaqeen. You can see what you believe. Do you understand? Yaqeen, certainty. And thirdly, when your heart reflects with sincerity and your mind reasons with humility, all of this because the seed of Tawheed was planted in your heart. The soil was nourished with true knowledge, true understanding of La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, free of innovation, free of deviation. What will also emerge is truth based on lived certainty of faith. And this is the highest form of certainty. And this emerges when belief becomes an internal reality, experienced through worship, through presence, and unwavering trust in Allah. It's called Haqq el-Yaqeen. Yes, Laila can speak Arabic when there's a need to. And my pronunciation is perfect when there's a need for it to be so. Okay? This is the journey of faith, the true journey of faith, from reason to realization to reverence, from seeking truth to actually seeing it with your eyes, to becoming shaped by it. Do you sisters understand that? That's the trunk of the tree. Look at this picture here. Look at how these trunks bend in submission. Y'all see these pictures I'm using here? They bend in submission to the will of Allah. Have you ever seen a tree trunk bend to the right, bend to the left, in submission to the will of Allah? This is ilm el-Yaqeen, knowledge based certainty. This is Ayn el-Yaqeen, vision based certainty. El-Haqq el-Yaqeen, truth based certainty. The trunk of submission based on knowledge, vision, and truth to the will of Allah. Are you sisters living this? Are your lives, is my life, are our lives filled with that type of faith? Is your belief in Allah like the trunk of these trees? Are we bending in submission to Allah, in certainty of faith to Him? Or are you bending at the submission of man? Sisters, answer that to yourself. Are you swaying to the submission of what the world expects of you, what the world wants of you? Or do you bend to the will of Allah? That's the question. I bend to the will of Allah. My back. I'm not bending and walking to the drum beat of anyone but Allah. Whose drum beat are you sisters walking to in your gowns, your fashion gowns, your eyelashes, your sequins, your diamonds and top hats as you travel from city to city in your greet and meets, meet and greets? Who are you greeting and meeting? Are you meeting and greeting to the will of Allah, or are you greeting and meeting to the will of man and the drums of the world? Sisters, this dunya is the podcast dunya calling to you, sisters, or is the hereafter podcast calling to you, sisters? The trunk of submission and sincerity. We have to understand, once the roots of knowledge and certainty have taken hold, that's when the trunk of the tree of Tawheed begins to rise. But the question is, are your roots based on knowledge and certainty of faith? And I'm not talking about secular knowledge. I'm not talking about knowledge of this dunya, knowledge from Harvard University. I'm not talking about knowledge gained from going to school to be a doctor. I'm not talking about knowledge gained from going to school to be a social worker or a counselor. I'm not talking about knowledge gained from going to school to even be a nurse or a psychologist. I'm talking about knowledge gained of Allah's names, Allah's attributes, why you were created, what is your purpose in life. What is it that brings you closer to Allah? What is it that takes you away from Him? That's the type of knowledge that causes the trunk of the tree of Tawheed to rise, not that other stuff. This trunk is the visible structure of faith, guys. It's the outward expression of what lies deep within. This is what keeps the believer upright in times of trial. So they don't have to do a podcast on relationships. They don't have to sit up on the internet making podcasts about relationships between women and men. Some things are best kept between women and men who are married anyway. We don't need to talk about male and female relationships. Allah already told us what those relationships are supposed to consist of, and some things are left in the bedroom anyway. Pillow talk is not for the world to hear. It belongs in my pillow and my husband's pillow, not for the rest of the world to hear. That's not the type of talk we should have. And a woman shouldn't be discussing relationships with a man who is not a mahram with her anyway, because all it does is turn him on and give him ideas about you and give you ideas about him, which leads to the footsies, which leads to the problems we're having with daya across the board today and in the masajids today. That's not what the Prophet Muhammad would allow. That's not what Umar radiallahu anha would have. That's not what Aisha would do. She didn't sit around discussing relationships with brothers like that. That's not Islam. That's Kafirism. That's Dr. Phil and Madam Ruth. Dr. Ruth. You've been watching too much Kafir TV. You've been living in the Western world too much. Westwood. Watching too many Kardashians. Learn how to keep up with the Abdullahs. Subhanallah. So, The roots of knowledge and certainty of faith is what keeps the true believer upright in times of trials. And it's what allows the tree of Tawheed to grow toward the sky of Allah's pleasure. And the believer is content with that. The believer is not content with anything else but that. The believer could care less about podcasts that would to take them to fame. They could care less about being famous. Subscribers could care less about Grammy Awards, could care less about looking for a lifestyle like the Kafirs. All they could care about is Allah's pleasure. What makes Allah happy, not what pleases man. Okay? So, the foundation of the trunk of the tree is based on two things: acceptance, which entails welcoming Allah's truth without hesitation or resistance. And that's where we lose it with a lot of you women. One of the reasons why it's going to be more women in hell than men, because women are more hard-headed than men. Women are never accepted, are never happy, are never satisfied. Women are always looking over the rainbow. Somewhere over the rainbow. That's a woman. Never happy. You could have the perfect husband who gives you a happy home, who tells you, you don't have to work, baby. I got a good job. I can take care of you. You got a beautiful home in a nice suburb. All you got to do is stay home. Learn your religion online. Take care of the kids. Make sure that the bills get paid. I'll bring the money home to you. Just take care of the kids. Take care of the house. Make sure the bills get paid. Here, I'll buy you an SUV. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. You know, you ain't got to work. That's not enough for you. Somewhere over the rainbow. You want to be a career woman. I want to go to school. I want to own my own business. I want to work. I want to be independent. I want to be like that lady over there. Khadijah had a business. She worked. She was a businesswoman, but you don't know nothing about Khadijah. Khadijah inherited businesses, but she never worked outside her house. She was happy with the role that Allah gave her as a woman. She wanted nothing other than to be what she was, a housewife and a mother. None of the women worked outside the home. They were all homebodied women. They took care of their children. They hired people to work for them, men to work for them. They were accepting of Allah's truth. Allah told them, this is the role of a woman. It's not a woman's job to provide and maintain. That's the job of a man. It's your job as a woman to take care of your husband's property. It's your job as a woman to take care of the children. It's your job as a woman to guard your husband's property, to guard yourself, to nurture these kids, to nurture yourself. Khadijah did that, as did all the other female companions. They weren't trying to compete and be a man. They were happy. And they welcomed Allah's truth without hesitation. They accepted Allah's truth without resistance. You women today are nothing like them. You resist the truth. You don't want to accept Allah's commands. You don't even want to dress the way Allah commanded. Allah commanded the believing women to cover their bodies when they leave the house, to not show their skin except the face and hands, to not wear tight clothing. You sisters don't accept that truth. You put on nightgowns, evening gowns. You want to look like the Kardashians. Y'all put on evening gowns that have belts on with sequins and diamonds to attract attention to you. You look like you going to a ball, like Cinderella going to a ball with belts on and sequins and diamonds, and then you put on all type of head scarves with your breast sticking out. Allah says, draw your khimar over your bosom. You sisters don't have your khimar over your bosom. You have your breast sticking out so that the brothers that y'all hang out with can see how big your breasts are. And you have your touche, the booty touche. What does Tay Tay call it, Tyra Banks? The touche. Y'all have the touche sticking out, the booty touche. Okay? You women are nothing like Khadijah. You're nothing like the female companions. You are not welcoming of Allah's truth. Those women welcomed Allah's truth. They didn't dress like you sisters. They didn't look like you sisters, alhamdulillah. They didn't think like you. They were nothing like you women. You women are Jezebels. You are Jezebels. That's what you women are today. So, the foundation of the trunk of the tree of Tawheed, it is shaped by what's in the heart. As the prophet said, whatever is in the heart will show from the limbs. Your limbs, your behavior shows that your hearts are hollow, that you have no acceptance of the truth. You don't accept Allah's command and how you dress. You are not accepting Allah's commands in your actions and behaviors. You sisters act like the Kafir women. You just got on evening gowns. That's all. A lot of evening gown clothing on, but you still showing your touche, the booty touche. The booty touche is sticking out and the breasts are sticking out, but you got a lot of clothes on. That's all. And your hats. All right. The second foundation of the trunk is submission. Without acceptance, there is no submission. How can there be submission to Allah if you're not welcoming Allah's truth? You have to submit, surrender completely to Allah's authority in your belief, in your worship. The fact that you sisters are traveling around the world without a mahram. Khadijah didn't travel without a mahram. Some of you sisters lie on Khadijah. I had to correct a few of you. Khadijah was never a traveling businesswoman. You will not find no hadith on planet Earth. I repeat, there is no hadith on planet Earth. I repeat, there is no hadith on planet Earth that says Khadijah ever was a businesswoman who traveled doing business. Like I said, she hired men to do that for her. She stayed home. None of the prophets' wives did that. None of the female companions were traveling business women. They had people to work for them to do that. That's how the women rolled back then. If they inherited a business, they hired men to take care of the businesses for them. That's how the women rolled. So this is a lie that you women have created. Okay? You women are not in submission to Allah. You're traveling around the world having meet and greets, doing podcasts. What is this podcasting? That's garbage. Go home and podcast with your kids. Homeschool your children. Homeschool your grandkids. What do you want to podcast for? What's this desire for fame? What is it you women are trying to do? You want to be the next Kardashian. What is your problem? Muslim women are supposed to be modest. Muslim women are not going around looking for fame, looking to be seen, looking to have a podcast. Are you crazy? That's not Islam. We don't look for that. That's not our job. That's not our role. Are you crazy? You women have lost it. In the Prophet's days, they'd execute women like you. Are you women are crazy? You're Jezebels. That's not what we do. You're looking for attention. The total opposite of how we're supposed to behave. You better podcast yourself in your home and close your doors and lock yourself up somewhere and repent from your sins. Get rid of your computers. Get rid of your cell phones, because those are all going to be the tickets to hell for a lot of you sisters. With the sins y'all committing, you're making Muslim women look like Jezebels. You're making us look bad. Okay? Your lifestyle is not the lifestyle of those female companions. Your lifestyle is the total opposite of what Allah commanded of Muslim woman's lifestyle to be. So submission is the second foundation of the trunk. Since you are lacking acceptance of Allah's truth, of his laws, his rules, that's why there's no submission to them. And that's why you sisters have terrible lives. That's why y'all can't keep a husband. That's why your children are growing up, apostating out of Islam, turning into drugs and all this other problems that we're having. That's why deep down inside, you sisters are very unhappy. Come on, I'm a woman. Let's be real. That's why you sisters are not happy. You're very unhappy. You're chasing dreams. You're chasing the dunya, thinking that you're going to find happiness in this dunya. There's no happiness here. When you imitate the kafir, you you inherit their problems. Okay? So, Islam is based on acceptance of Allah and his truth. Islam is based on submitting to Allah and his truth. And as a result of those two things, Islam will transform a seeker into a servant who submits to Allah willingly and lovingly, until you sisters understand that you will never find contentment in life. Okay? Because faith without submission is just a theory. And submission without acceptance is just a ritual. You're just making your salats. That's why so many of you come to me, oh, Sister Laila, I make dua, but I never feel good afterwards. I pray every day. I read the Quran, but it never brings no contentment to me. Yeah, because submission without acceptance is just a lifeless ritual. You're just going through the rituals of being a Muslim, but there's no submission. And you're just a Muslim in theory. Are you a Muslim in actuality? No, you're just a Muslim in theory. See? So what is it that gives the trunk its strength? What is it that gives the trunk its vitality? What is it that gives the trunk? And by the way, this is philosophy 101. I don't need to go to school and get a secular degree in it. I don't need Dr. Field to tell me about it. This is all from the Quran, from this surah, Ibrahim. What is it that gives the trunk its strength, its vitality? and its ability to endure the storms of life? Well, write it down. Number one, truthfulness. Being honest with yourself first. Realize that you got some hypocrisy in your heart. That's why it all begins with cleansing the soil. Cleansing the soil of the heart before you plant the seed. A lot of us have a lot of hypocrisy in our heart. Okay, we say we believe in Allah, but we really don't, because we picking and choosing what parts of this religion to accept. A lot of women don't want to accept the fact that you can't wear belts, that you got to cover your body correctly, that you ain't dressing correctly. You have to accept the fact that you can't be interacting with men the way you do. You have to accept the fact that it ain't about no fame. What do you got a podcast for? Who are you? You ain't giving dawah. You ain't qualified to teach Islam because you don't even know nothing about Islam. You just sitting up here, talking to men. You flirting. What are you talking about relationships for? Is that Islamic? Is this something that Aisha would do? Would Aisha sit up and have a podcast with a bunch of men who are not mahrams to her, and they talking about sex? They talking about women and men relationships? That's intimate. Is this Islamic? Come on, be honest with yourself. You got a problem, sister. You got a serious problem. You need to go get checked out. Be honest with yourself first. You got some insecurities. And then be honest with Allah. Acknowledge your shortcomings and strive to be more sincere. That's how you give your trunk strength. Secondly, sincerity. Remember, the Prophet Muhammad said, Allah does not accept anything, any deed, unless it's done with sincerity. Every act of worship must be done purely for Allah. It cannot be done seeking the praise, the admiration, the status, or the attention of anyone else. He doesn't accept it. If you're going to fast, you have to fast because you're doing it for Allah, not because you're doing it for Allah and you losing weight. If you're going to wear a niqab, you don't have to wear a niqab. But if you choose to wear a niqab, you're doing it to please Allah, not because you're trying to please Allah and your husband. Allah said he's not in need of anything that's done for his sake and someone else's. So it has to be done out of sincerity for him alone. That's how you give strength to the trunk of that tree and make it able to endure the storms of life. You have to have truthfulness, and you have to have sincerity, and also love, true love for Allah. You have to love him more than anyone and everything, more than yourself, more than your mother, more than your father, more than your children, more than your husband, more than money, more than fame. You have to love Allah more than anyone and anything else. Most of you don't love yourself. You have to love Allah first and foremost. So these inner virtues are what turns submission into strength. Without these three things here, the trunk of your tree will become hollow. It will be externally tall, but internally it'll be weak. and it'll be easily swayed by trials or temptations. Many of you sisters are tall in stature. Many of you are beautiful to look at, but in the inside, you're empty, you're hollow, you're nothing. And that's why you can't find happiness or contentment in life, because there's nothing inside of you. Nothing. You're just visible, pleasing to the eye in your evening gowns, your fake diamonds, your fake eyelashes, your podcasts with your beautiful soft voices, your fake nails, fake, because y'all wear those fake nails too, your fake fingernails, and all those brothers y'all have sitting on those podcasts with y'all batting their eyes with y'all, thinking y'all all that in a bag of chips. And then when y'all turn off the podcast and go home, y'all empty. And you look in the mirror at yourself, you take off all that fake stuff y'all got on, and you cry because you hollow, because you lack all of this. Sad. So how do we protect and nourish the trunk of our tree? Well, by number one, commanding good. The first way to protect the trunk of your tree is by guarding the garden around it. And how do we guard the garden around it? By enjoining what is good, encouraging virtue, encouraging the truth, encouraging good behavior, and staying away from the haram stuff, guys. We got to stay away from that stuff that you know you doing that's haram. Stay away from sinful behavior. Stay away from sinful people. Remember, the prophet said, be careful who you are hanging around with. A lot of you sisters are hanging around with bad people. You hanging around with sisters who ain't about nothing. You hanging around with sisters who are just as hollow as you. The prophet said, be careful who you choose to be your friends, because a person will take on a religion of their closest friends. You need to be around with strong, practicing Muslim sisters, not women who are just as hollow or even more hollow in the inside than you are. Also, another good way is to engage in dawah. But how can you call others to Islam when you can't even call yourself? You got to learn the religion first. Because that's the problem. A lot of you sisters are doing these podcasts, and y'all think y'all calling people to Islam, but you're not. You calling people to the dunya, because your podcasts are about relationships. That's not Islam. We don't sit around as Muslim women talking about sex and relationships between women and men like y'all doing. Y'all made a joke out of polygamy. I'm sorry. That's all y'all talk about is polygamy and y'all made polygamy like the LDS, the sister wives. Y'all are ridiculous. All y'all talk about is relationships, and that's not dawah. So I don't even want to put that up here. You cannot call others to Tawheed until you learn Tawheed yourself. You need to learn what Tawheed is before you can call them to it, because that's a big problem today. You guys are calling many new shahadas to falsehood. I know, because I got a whole bunch of new shahadas here. I got over 150 new shahadas here. And many of them have come to me and they said, wow, we never learned any of this. All they learned about was polygamy. You don't teach a new shahada polygamy. And what they learned about polygamy was all wrong. It was LDS stuff that they learned listening to your podcast, because all you sisters talk about is relationships. Okay? Another way to protect and nourish the trunk is through worship. Worship of Allah driven by your love for Allah. Learn how to pray correctly, how to pray with humility. Learn the meaning of El-Fatiha. Learn how to perform the prayer the way the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught. Learn why we do the Sunnahs. How the purpose of the Sunnahs is to strengthen your khushu'. Okay? Also, learn what dhikr is. Dhikr is an Arabic word that means remembrance of Allah. Learn how to keep your tongue moist through remembering Allah, through his names, through certain words of remembrance. How to wake up in the morning with words of remembrance. How to recite words of remembrance as you're driving to work, as you're going to school. When you find yourself getting angry during the day, instead of cursing, remember, say words of remembrance. When you're driving up a hill, say words of remembrance. When you're coming down a hill, words of remembrance. When you find yourself having bad thoughts, recite words of remembrance. Also, reciting the Quran and pondering the meaning of it, not just sitting there learning how to read it in Arabic. Yeah, the tajweed is beautiful. I love to read the Quran in tajweed. But also, read the interpretation of the meaning. Get a Quran Tafsir book and read the history behind each verse of the Quran. What, the who, what, where, when, why. And also speak to Allah. Get a personal, every Muslim should have a personal relationship with Allah. Learn how to talk to Allah on a regular basis. Whenever you feel alone or you're going through a hardship, just speak to Allah. He's your best friend. He's just a heartbeat away. Talk to Allah. I talk to Allah all the time. But all of this must come from the heart. Not as routine, but as a spiritual breath. And it has to be truthful, sincere, and rooted in love for Allah. The more love that fills the heart, the more submission becomes sweetness and not a burden. And the more sincerity that deepens, the stronger your tree will grow and be able to weather the storms with dignity. Finally, remember, the trunk of the tree of Tawheed is not just an external show of Islam. It is the pillar of the soul. It's a form of acceptance through submission, fortified through truthfulness, sincerity, and love. And to protect it, you must care for the world around it. So you have to be a person who speaks the truth. You have to be a person that does good. You have to be a person that's able to resist doing evil. And you have to feed your tree every day. And what do we feed our tree with? We feed it with knowledge. You have to be regular and consistent in learning your religion correctly and in worshiping Allah. And remember, that's how the branches of your tree will rise. And that's when the fruit will appear. And the fruit of the tree of Tawheed is the character of the human being. And the character is what will stand in both this world and the next. And when we meet next week, we'll review once again the character of the tree of Tawheed.